And now for our next news special report.
Imagine this. While winds of crisis blow across international borders, our leader chooses barbecue over boldness. The stark difference between a Sunday feast and Monday's eerie silence paints a picture that every American should see. Tonight, we dive deep into a tale of 2 days where leadership seems overshadowed by light bulbs. Yes, you heard that right. Stay with me for a story that reveals not just facts, but also the state of our nation's leadership. And believe me, by the end of tonight's report, my final thought might just redefine the way you see actions, optics, and yes, even outdoor lighting. Sunday was a day like any other at the White House if you were just passing by. This sun beamed down, lending its glow to the historic building that has stood witness to countless international incidents and responses. And on this particular Sunday, the aroma of barbecue wafted through the air, mingling with the notes of a band playing in the vicinity of the White House Rose Garden. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, it was confirmed, were hosting a barbecue for the White House executive resident staff and their families. A heartwarming gesture, of course, celebrating those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, making the administration's day-to-day functions possible. Brian Bennett, from Time magazine, he captured the scene, penning observations about the musical emanations that he detected. The juxtaposition of these merry sounds against a backdrop of international unrest was, however, impossible to ignore. By Monday, the winds had shifted. Urgent news began to pour in, painting a grim picture. A minimum of 9 Americans had tragically met their end in Israel. This was no minor international blimp. It was a major incident that demanded attention, a response, and most critically, leadership. Furthermore, with several Americans now held hostage by the known terror group Hamas, the situation couldn't be more critical. The flames of crisis were licking at the very principles the United States stands for. Yet come Monday morning, Biden's reaction was astonishing. Instead of stepping up to the plate, displaying the kind of assertive leadership the situation demanded, Biden decided to call it a day. Such a move, especially given the urgency of the situation, raises pressing questions about the administration's actual priorities. And adding fuel to the fire, not long after, a chilling message from a Hamas spokesperson hit the airwaves. Their audacious threat: for every Israeli airstrike, they would execute hostages. Now, whether or not you're an advocate for strong foreign policy measures, one fact remains indisputable. American lives were and are at stake. With the barbecue from the day prior and the contrasting silence on Monday, even the casual observer might wonder about the timing of these events. Could there be a more stark contrast? The Israeli ambassador to the U.S., he's made the rounds on the news channels, confirming on CNN the harrowing reality of Americans held captive by the Hamas militants. The atmosphere was palpably tense. The situation in the Middle East reached an all-time high. The fate of these Americans hung precariously in the balance. Watch.
Can you give us more clarity about how many Americans are among the hostages?
All I can say is that we know there are Americans among the hostages, but I cannot provide more details at this point.
If this were an isolated incident, perhaps the benefit of doubt might be extended. But when put alongside other global crises, the pattern becomes more discernible. This isn't the first time questions have been raised about Biden's actions or lack thereof during pivotal moments. The heartbreaking incident in Afghanistan, where Afghan Americans fell behind, still lingers in recent memory. Fox News correspondent Peter Doocy provided another layer to the unfolding narrative. Despite it being a federal holiday, the D.C. government seemed operational, albeit a reduced capacity. A usual indicator of the president's presence, a Marine outside the West Wing, was conspicuously absent on Monday. Amidst the global turmoil, Doocy's observation added a domestic layer of intrigue. Was the president absent during this barbecue? Where was the leadership America so desperately sought? The White House response, while detailed, felt like a rehearsed dance around the core issues. They pointed out Biden's phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu and defended the barbecue as a long-planned appreciation event for non-political staff. But what was glaringly missing was a public address, a reassurance to the American people. Watch.
It's possible that they could lift the so-called lid and do something publicly, but that is extremely uncommon. It's a federal holiday here in Washington, D.C., and so the federal government kind of operates still, despite everything happening in Israel and Americans who have been killed or captured, reportedly. They're still operating with kind of a skeleton crew. And as we know, because we deal with this sometimes when there is a crisis happening either at home or abroad, you can generally tell if the president is in the Oval Office or the Situation Room because there will be a Marine sentry stationed outside the West Wing, and we can look down our position down the driveway, and I don't see a Marine standing there. Doesn't mean that the president's not working on this, but it does just kind of go more to the feel here on campus that it is a federal holiday and things are going off as planned. People are out of the office, they're working remotely. We also have some more about this barbecue yesterday. We were up and down to the live shot position all afternoon. We started to hear music coming from the Rose Garden. We asked what was going on. We were told that there was a barbecue for some staff. I have a statement now. I asked the White House how long President Biden was actually there, and I'm going to read back what they sent me in full. President Biden has been consistently engaged in supporting Israel as they defend themselves against these brutal terrorist attacks. Yesterday, after another call with Prime Minister Netanyahu and ordering the American military to provide aid to the IDF to ensure that they have what they need, the president held a long-scheduled event to thank the hard-working non-political staff who keep the White House running, operating the kitchens, cleaning the White House, and helping keep the complex safe. This date was chosen because there were not White House activities that would require their work and they could bring their families. They deserve recognition, and no small petty comments from partisan media or elected officials change that. And so we are told President Biden is on top of all this, but he's not going to tell us that in person today. Brian.
The devastation on the ground in Israel further underscores the gravity of the situation. Over 1,000 Israelis lost their lives to the aggressive moves by Hamas. More than 100 remain held hostage. Preliminary videos from the region depict a decisive retaliation from Israel's military against suspected militant bases in the Gaza Strip. Rumors began to circulate about Iran's potential backing of Hamas, and ties are being drawn between the U.S.-Iran deal, which led to $6 billion in assets being unfrozen and transferred to Iran, and this surge in violence. Could this asset unfreezing be indirectly bolstering terror outfits like Hamas? And what can only be described as the pinnacle of presidential proactivity, the White House decided that the most profound way to address the Israel crisis was to, wait for it, change the light bulbs. Yes, amidst the global unrest, the White House shone bright in the blue and white hues of the Israeli flag commemorating a 75-year relationship. Perhaps the lighting choice doubles as a bedtime nightlight for Biden? But don't worry. A tweet from Biden reassures us. Tonight, America says clearly to the Israeli people, to the world, and to the terrorists everywhere that we stand with Israel, and that will never change. So long as our nation's stance is tweetable and our lights are color coordinated, I think we can all rest easy, just like Joe Biden does. Ladies and gentlemen, in the storied halls of history, leaders are remembered not just for their words or their deeds, especially in the face of adversity. As the world grappled with the horrifying news of Americans held hostage, our nation's response was shockingly a barbecue, followed by changing light bulbs. Perhaps those new bulbs at the White House could illuminate the path to decisive leadership? But hey, let's not be too hasty. After all, color-coordinated lighting might be the new diplomatic strategy we've all been waiting for, right? As we close tonight, remember this. When true leadership was needed, when American lives were at stake, our response was a change in wattage. While we can joke about it, the reality is stark. America deserves better. Sleep tight knowing that, at least for now, our nation's stance is both tweetable and glow in the dark. Good night, and may God bless our republic.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.